Hello and welcome back to the studio. Today I'm excited to perform a little experiment with you. I've been taking a deep dive into color theory because I've been working more with oil pastels, as you can see on the wall behind me. So most of these that are in color are oil pastel works, and because I can't mix the pigment on my palette, I really need to lean heavily on my color theory because I'm applying it to the paper raw, which is just something that I don't do with watercolor. It's been really refreshing, and I must say, has been a challenge that I've enjoyed. So with that already on the mind, I happen to see more artists really emphasizing using complementary colors to create shadows. And I thought it would be fun to take a deep dive into these two different schools of thought. So I have used both of the techniques that I'm going to talk about, but I haven't compared the two side by side. So I'm excited to do this little deep dive in with you together today. Now, a quick color theory review, because I can't assume that we're all starting at the same spot. We're going to talk about color relationships, because there's two major color relationships that are going to be at war today, if you will. So the first one is complementary colors. If you have a color that is opposite on the color wheel, it's called a complement. So the complement, or the opposite of red, is green, the complement of violet is yellow, and the complement of blue is orange, and then vice versa. The interesting thing about these complements is that they neutralize each other. If you're really good at mixing, you can get a gray or a black tone. But most of the time, it'll give you a desaturated, kind of brownish tone, depending on which color is dominant in your mixing. But it's a great way to get a nice variety of hues to neutralize your colors and to create those shadows. Something that might be a little bit less popular is using what's called analogous colors. So the analogous colors are colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. So we've got yellow. Analogous to yellow would be green and orange. For red, we have orange and violet. For violet, we have red and blue. Now you may notice a lot of times these two colors, the colors that are analogous, mix that color or are used to mix their analogous colors. Because of that, they have that very close relativity and they can kind of be like sisters. So I like how they work together really well. And it can be a way to deepen your piece without it getting muddy. So for this little test, we're going to paint a red flower. And for half of it, I'm going to place the shadows in beforehand in green. And we're just going to see how that looks overall. I'm also going to do the other half, but violet or my purple tone, in order just to see how they both work, which one performs better if one does. So I'm excited. I'm a little bit nervous because I might be proving myself wrong here, but let's dive in. All right, starting with green, I'm just going to add this in some of these shadow areas. I'm dabbing my brush off. And anywhere that I want to kind of just quietly deepen, I'm going to add this in. And while this might look strange at first, I promise it works. You can also use this color on top instead of working with it primarily, but I thought it might be kind of interesting to see the effect when we color over it with the red all together. Got a shadow in here. All right, now we've got our shadows in place, and it does look a little bit funny now. Often when I would do this normally is I would mix the base color. I would apply my first wash, which would be the red tone, kind of the overall hue, and then I'd go back in with the red mixed with the green. But to show you the overall effect, I thought we'd lay down our initial colors first, our shadow colors. It will have the same effect, I promise. It's just kind of a different way to do it. Kind of like different ways of folding your towels. Neither one is necessarily correct, but some people will swear by one or the other. It's really just, as long as it gets done, it looks tidy, and it fits into the linen closet, we should be good. So for this side, we're gonna work with the analogous colors, which again, if we look at our color wheel, red would be violet or purple. Normally, because I don't have a lot of purple on my palette, normally I just add a dab of our blue with our red, but for this project, I'm going to use purple. And we're just gonna do the same thing. So I'm gonna add in all of the shadows, all of the veining, anywhere that I would want to have that deeper value on display, we're gonna add that in. But this time we're gonna do it in purple. So this half will be analogous colors, and this half on the left will be our complementary colors. Now I have the shadows in with the purple, which I must say, I don't use that color very often. It was a little more difficult to work with than I would have hoped. But we've applied it down. You can see I have it a lot thicker in some areas, a lot more concentrated where I want the shadow to be deeper. Now we're going to go in with our Winsor Red, and I'm just going to apply a wash of color. This will still, I'll still be adding it in a more concentrated way in certain areas. But in general, this will be much more lazy than the labor-intensive commencement. You can see how even though I'm applying a pretty even base across the whole thing, there is that definition already building in. So even though I have more intense greens over here, I still need to add in our more intense red pigment, just building up that layer in here. So while it will give me a shadow, my work is not done. But see how we have that definition already? That's really nice. And that's kind of what we're going for with this. Now again, I'd want to add another layer. For this side, I'd want to mix it with the green to continue to build that in, because this color will lighten. This will lighten like that one did. But you can see it's working. But you can see why this way is so popular among artists in general. It works. All right, while this side dries, we will work on this other side. Same pigment on top and just allowing it to build up. All right, everything's dry now from our initial red application. And you can see that there's some unevenness, which is super normal. We're gonna go in, even everything out, and deepen some of our shadows a little bit more, but you can already see some of the difference between the two sides. One thing I like about the analogous side is that it feels a little bit more harmonious. And this is because the colors work well together. Whereas the complements, even though it's a brilliant way to get those nice deep darks, and really the best way to get those nice crisp shadows, and really if you want to get that deep color, it really is the best way. There's just some dissonance in here from some of the colors kind of showing through, where when purple and red are next to each other, because they're complements, they don't create a dissonance, they don't fight in your mind. Green and red, on the other hand, can do that. So that's why I generally prefer to use the analogous colors instead of the complements. However, if you want to get nice and deep and dark, and there are certain color combinations where working with a complementary color just can't be beat. But let's continue with this and we'll see how everything turns out in the end. All right, so there is our complementary side. You can see that adding another layer in here really toned down that underlying green hue, and we've got these beautiful shadows in here. This is just with that sap green and Winsor red. I've added no other colors, and to my red layers, I've just used the red in different variations. So I've built it up a little bit here to continue to knock that down, but to bring the overall value down. Now it's not great in some areas. I would like to darken over here and in this section. To do that on our complementary side, I'd want to mix together the red and green. Now I do it in different concoctions in order to get, I wouldn't really want to lean on this side of the scale, but more something like this where it's deepening it and it's canceling that out. But you can see how with just those two colors, we can get a lot of interesting depth in there, a lot of movement. Again, just by adding the green and then the red on top of it in 2 layers. Again, I did do, it's much lighter here than in this section. The red was applied much lighter here than in this section here, but you can see how quickly that came together. Let's do the same thing with the purple side, with our analogous side. And that's our analogous side complete, at least with our second layer of red. You can see that both have very similar results overall. Even to my husband, who is an artist, I don't think he would necessarily know which side is which. Now I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to deepen some of these shadows by mixing these colors together. I'm again going to stick with purple for my shadows on this side and green for my shadows on this side. And then we'll do a final reveal at the end. And just so that you can see, I am mixing, it's still very red. It's leaning very red. I'm mixing the green in here, but we're leaning more red. This is a little bit more green. I might go into that, but I'm gonna start with this. I'm gonna do the same thing with the purple. When I'm mixing the purple in, it will still lean very heavily red. And that is our finished painting. So I must say, I'm a little bit relieved, but also very impressed that in general, I can't tell the difference between the two sides. Yeah, I really can't. So there might be it might be a little bit deeper on the side with the complements, which I would expect. But the whole painting looks pretty harmonious, which is pretty surprising to me and a little bit of relief, like I said. Sometimes you have these theories and you're not really sure if they actually work or if they, just work in your head. But one thing to remember and keep in mind is that when we did just a single layer, the green was really showing through. And so maybe it's something where if you're working with a lighter value, working with analogous colors might be a better option, at least to start. Where deeper values, it doesn't really matter as much as long as the complement that you're using or the analogous color that you're using is deep enough to get it where you want it to go. If you'd be interested in doing kind of a deeper dive in color theory, more videos like this, let me know in the comment section down below. And on your way there, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. I hope that you're having a wonderful, wonderful day. And until next time, happy painting.